Hello, Mel here. Just wanted to do a bit of an update video about adolescence because I've seen today that they're going to roll it out and show it in schools, which is interesting, but a little bit concerning for me because I think there's some risks that come with that. If you're not sure who I am, by the way, I'm a counsellor in private practice. I used to work on a perpetrator programme with perpetrators of domestic abuse. I've also designed perpetrator interventions as well. So I have a real interest in this, and so I wrote a very long blog about adolescence and made a video about it as well because I was absolutely fascinated by it. And I know that there was a lot of calls afterwards for people to say, yeah, this should be shown in schools, this is so important. I personally think that adolescence was really important for parents and for adults and for people who actually don't have kids as well, and for wider society. I think that's where the learning and reflection is. It's for adults. I personally have some reservations about it being shown in schools. I don't know how kids are going to react to that. I also don't work in a school and I don't work with young people that much. So in that sense, not an expert on this, but I get the sense that it could bring up a lot. I mean, think about how emotional it was as an adult. If you're an adult and you watched it, how much it brought up for you. If you're in school and in that and living in that, how is that going to go? I think the risks of this are quite strong, and I worry for the teachers trying to hold that as well, because if they've got some resources or worksheets or something which are going to come with it, apparently a place called Tender are going to do that. And it's not the same as holding the risk in the room. And also it goes beyond the room as well. It goes into social media afterwards. I just watched a video by Gina Martin on this as well, who raises that concern amongst many. She talks about what if you're a boy watching this and what if you're a girl watching this. And it's a good video, so you should go check that out because it does highlight really some of the perspectives on this that might be really tricky to hold and to handle. I think there could be something in schools. I don't think necessarily showing adolescence or the whole thing is what we need. Some kind of workshops, yes, they definitely need really careful creation and deliberation from a range of experts. And I think that there needs to be incel researchers and experts in there as well. I'm not an expert in the field, but actually I've been reading about it for a long time. And I'm certainly not an academic, but hello, I'm here if you need anyone. That's my point, sorry. The research that I've done on incels is really showing that there is a mental health crisis in the manosphere. People are lured into incel like behaviors and communities and like rhetoric and stuff because they're often struggling with depression, anxiety. There can be lots of difficulties with belonging that takes people into those spaces, and there's a high rate of people with suicidal ideation, so thinking about suicide a lot in these communities. What we have is actually a real mental health difficulty. So if you're somebody who has access almost to a boy in school, I think about how vulnerable you're going to feel then if that comes up. There's also the thing in schools that I suppose adolescents raise that much of this might now be used as an insult. It might be the reason that people get bullied, that they think that they're incels or an Andrew Tate fan or like part of the manosphere somehow, when these are already going to be people potentially struggling with their mental health. So I saw a thing the other day that said what's needed for incels is not necessarily a terrorism approach, although they were talking about, do we class this as a form of terrorism? But in terms of trying to help with this, that it would be a more mental health approach. And that's really difficult when in the UK, there's so many limitations on mental health and there's waiting lists and there's it's very difficult. It can be quite difficult to access counselling or therapy. Also, are incels going to choose to do that? Because it's probably a safer place to be online to go and find community and find help in online spaces. There can often be people in those spaces who find social interactions really difficult, find the outside world really difficult, are neurodivergent, predominantly mainly autism. I think I've seen there's a lot of autistic people who might be in those communities. There's so much in this and so much in adolescence that can't be covered. I mean, and I fear that what they might do is just go, oh, social media rules and emoji codes, and that's it. But if you're just looking at that, you've kind of missed everything. In my blog, I talk about gender roles and shame and trauma, because trauma isn't just capital T, like big trauma. It's like relational trauma, relationship trauma. And I don't know if all of these would be covered. So they probably wouldn't have time to do it in a school. So I don't think they can give it the justice this deserves. If you're a parent and you've got like an older teen and you're maybe watching it with them and you then want to discuss some of the points from it, and Gina Martin's got some reflection points on there. I've got like, the bits in my blog as well that you could draw on, and that could be a really useful conversation. But I think there needs to be something that is going to be, if they're doing something in schools, it needs to be in a home as well. It needs to be for parents. It needs to be workshops or something for parents as well as kids, because that is where the work is. The work is us as adults, as a society, to help people with their mental health. It's not about showing kids and scaring them and being like, look, this behavior is bad, don't do this, because it really is going to risk making it worse. So that's my take on this. If you have any thoughts on this, or if you do work with young people or in schools, like, if you have any thoughts on how it's going to go, then let me know in the comments. Do feel free to contact me. And thanks for listening.